Hello, everyone. It is Wednesday evening. It's time for our 7 o'clock show. Let's call it a show. Why not? Our 7 o'clock session here at the Beauty and Self-Care Summit. Tonight, I have a very special lady. She's a friend of mine. We've known each other for quite some time now. We've worked together for a while. And she's a fellow makeup artist. She is a senior. Let me get this straight. She can correct me in a minute. She's a senior artist as well as a regional trainer for Sephora. So she's got all the goods on Sephora and all the trends and all what people, she can see what people are buying and what they're doing and things like that. So she's got a little insight from that. She's 23 years old. She's from Texas, and she's also a promoter of personal style. And once you see her, you'll know exactly why she does that. She created Olive's House of Beauty to share her expertise, product knowledge, and artistry tricks with her own flair and personal style. She loves meeting new people and helping them feel more confident in themselves. And she will be the first person to tell you that less is more and there are no rules to makeup and personal style. So with all of that, I would like to welcome Melanie Olive. How are you, Melanie? Let me get your mics up. There we go.
Okay, you hear me? Hi, I'm good. I'm really good. I'm excited to be doing this. So excited.
Huh? So let me start by asking you if you would just, in your own words, tell everyone a little bit about yourself and what you do and why you're passionate for what you do.
So I am a senior artist for Sephora. I work at the Houston Galleria location. I've been doing makeup now for 7 years, and something that really brought me into like the beauty industry and like really falling in love with makeup is growing up, I really didn't have that self-confidence in myself. And I really turned to makeup to kind of help boost me a little bit. So back then I was wanting to cover everything. And now I'm like, I just want to buy all the eyeshadow palettes and put everything on my face and have fun with it and really make something my own. So yeah.
Yeah, well, you are definitely doing that. You have created your own signature, your own branding. You know, you are Olive's House of Beauty, and I love it. I love it. For those of y'all who don't follow her yet on Instagram, that's the place to be. It's just after. Don't go there now. Wait till later, and go to Olive's House of Beauty on Instagram and follow her. It's great to follow her. It's fun. Okay, so what are you going to be doing for us today?
Eyebrows. So I figured right now with like salons being closed, I know that my eyebrows are getting out of control. And so I've actually had a lot of people message me and asking like, what are you doing to keep your eyebrows groomed? What can I do? What are things that I need? And for me, I just have my tweezers and my brow pencil and a brow gel. And I really just wanted to show and kind of go into detail on how to groom your own brows at home. Because we're so used to going and getting them threaded or waxed and getting them groomed. So now how do we do that at home now that that's unavailable?
Okay. And yeah, so why don't you just go ahead and get started and walk us through things. I'm going to take my notes because I'm going to probably ask you questions, but I'm also going to follow my notes and do them myself and see how good I do, because I always rely on the expert. I have mine microbladed in so that I don't have to worry about it. So have at it.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So I have actually taken a class from, her name's Anastasia Sawar. And I don't know if y'all know who she is, but she is the queen of brows. And so I've been fortunate with my job to be in one of her master classes. And so one thing that I think is really important is knowing your brow shape, which is also very unique for everybody. So this is called brow mapping. So I'm going to use a pencil. I'm going to use a pencil, and I'm going to use my nose as a guide. So I'm just using the very side of my nose, not the top and not too far down, but directly on the side. And I'm just going to make a little mark in the very front. And that's where the beginning of your brow should be.
Okay, so
and then you're going to go to the center eye.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so your video is freezing, but yet your voice is.
No.
Yeah, so it's like I'm not quite sure what's happening.
I think I can move. Let me see if it's my internet. I'm going to try to move a little bit.
Okay.
Is that any better?
You're frozen. Your video is frozen. And so when you were talking and your video was frozen, you're sitting there looking at me.
Oh no. Okay, how about now?
I see you. Let's see.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but it's back on me for the screen.
Okay. Anything? I feel like I'm on that cell phone commercial.
Right? Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me now? Can you see me?
I can see you every once in a while, but it's not syncing with your voice.
Okay.
Do you want to, how about, would you like to log out and then come back in?
Yes. Let me see if that works.
Okay.
Okay.
Meanwhile, while she's doing that, I'm going to take any questions if anyone has any. Let's see, I'm going to type it right over here. Does anyone have any questions? This is great. It's just you and I here on the live stream. So I know what she was talking about. I can go ahead and start telling you that. She was talking about where she starts with her brows. Hi, Erin, how are you? So she had, I don't know if you saw this, but she had a, like an eye pencil or a brow pencil. I'm sure it was a brow pencil. And she was putting it right here. And my guess is she had it open and she was showing you right there. So look at the bulb of your nose. Right here, you don't put it here because that's too far. It'll make your eyes look farther apart. But if you go right here at the bulb of your nose and straight up, that should be the inner edge of your brow. Well, look at there, isn't that cool? That's where your brow should stop. Not quite even, but I'm gonna zoom in or come in closer. Uh-oh, I got the permanent. How fun is that? So if anybody wants to know what that is, this is Charlotte Tilbury's Rock and Coal eyeliner that I just did that with. And it's not wanting to come off very well, is it? Look at there, I'm taking my makeup off too. There's Melanie, she just popped back on. You want to try talking? I was picking up for you.
I love it, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is everything okay now? Is it better?
It seems to be a little bit better. At least it's showing you to me when you speak.
Okay, perfect. Where do you want me to start? I'm like, okay. Okay, I'm back. I'm better than ever. Okay, so back to brow mapping. So I used the side of my nose. I use the side of my nose and make a straight line up. And then I go diagonal across my eye and like in the center of the eye. And then make a mark here. That's where your arch should be. And then go back. My lashes are getting in the way. And then you go to the very end of the eye or end of the brow. And that's where your tail should be. I don't know if you can see that. Now, some people think that when they map it out this way, it does make it a little bit too long for their personal taste. That's fine. Just go a little shorter wherever you feel comfortable. I like mine to be kind of long, so I'm going to keep mine there. But so using my pencil, this one is by Koki Cosmetics. You can get a pencil like this from like Target or Walgreens. Maybelline has one that's really good, very similar to this one. I just like it because it's really thin. So it creates brow hairs versus something that's too harsh or too bold. And so once we have our marks, I like to kind of connect the dots. So I start at the bottom and just very lightly connect to the center, then very lightly connect to the tail. And then same thing at the front. So you don't have to put a lot of pressure on the pencil. Just very, very light. And then the best part about using a pencil is you can just take your finger and kind of tap out those little marks that we have. And so I'm just going to fill in any sparse areas where my hair doesn't grow. And I just want it to be filled in. That way it is all even. And just like that. Oh, it almost got stuck in my hair. Okay, so when it comes to grooming them, what I like to do is fill them in exactly like this first, and then I take my tweezers and just kind of tweeze around where I have any stray hairs. That way I get to keep the shape that I like, because one too many times I've gone to, you know, when you cheat on your nail lady and you cheat on your brow lady, you don't always get the same thing. And so I was out of town and I needed my brows done so bad. I had a wedding to go to, and she made my eyebrows too thin. And I didn't like that. And so after that, I was like, I need to learn, just for me, in case this ever happens again and I'm in a pickle and I need my brows done, I need to learn how to do them the way I like them. And it's also really helpful if you go to your brow lady when all of this is done and fill them in the way that you like them. And then just tell her like, hey, can you thread around this? This is the shape that I like, and they'll do it for you. So I'm gonna hold this mirror up because I need you to see and I need to see. So I did leave my brows alone for like a week so that I could do this and show you like in real life what this looks like. And so my tweezers are, I believe, Revlon tweezers. Nothing special, nothing crazy. And they work just fine.
It's Wednesday evening. It's time for our 7 o'clock show.
There you go.
Our 7 o'clock session.
Oh, can you hear that?
Yeah.
Tonight I have a very special.
How do I stop it there? Goodness gracious. I apologize for that.
So you don't have to pull super hard, just boop, pop them right out. And try not to get too close to where your natural brow is, because I have done this one too many times where I'm like, oh, I want it to be a little bit thinner there. And then I pull out too much. Because we still have brow pencils, we can fill in spaces, but we don't want to yank out hairs. And then, because sometimes they don't grow back the same. And then sometimes my brow hairs almost need a haircut every single time I do this because they grow so long and so thick. So one thing that I do, and if you're brave, you can do this, but if you're not, it's okay. I take a spoolie on my brush and I brush my brow hairs down, which they're not too long right now. And I do have some brow scissors that I use. I like them because they're angled, so they're not super straight. And I just kind of go right underneath and just trim it just a little bit. Not too much. And then here in the very front of my brow, I'm missing some hairs. So I will take my pencil again, and I'm going to give myself little brow hairs by just making little tiny strokes with my pencil. And that way it looks natural. It doesn't look super filled in or really harsh. And then if you can't get all the brow hairs, sometimes I can't, sometimes they're too thin, I will take like a concealer. And it doesn't have to be too light. It can be the same color. I typically like to go either my color or a little bit lighter. And I lost my, there it is. I take a really flat brush, like super, super flat. And I just pick up a tiny bit of that concealer. And I go underneath.
Now, do you normally do your eyebrows before your eye makeup or like this after you've got your eye makeup on?
I prefer to put it on before. That way my eye shape, even like where my brow bone is exactly how I want it. Because sometimes it is a little bit more difficult to do brows after eyes, because say you've got some eyeshadow up here and then you take your concealer and then you go around it, now it's not blended anymore. So I typically like to do my brows first.
Okay.
And then I'm doing this concealer mostly underneath, well, kind of like underneath where my arch is, because you have more control over your arch at the top if you take away from the bottom instead of the top. So you'll have this nice arch without even touching the top of the brow.
So you don't ever work on the top at all?
Only if I'm doing like a really bold brow, or if I notice that I have, because I will get like this weird like line of tiny baby hairs right here, and I'll pluck those away. But I usually don't do a lot of concealer around my arch.
Okay.
But that's just my personal preference.
We have such a variety of people that will be watching this, and I know some of the sometimes the more mature clients don't want that very sharp edge. They want a softer brow.
Very soft, right.
But you're young, you're trendy, you're all the things, and that bolder brow suits your personality quite well.
Thank you. But if you do want to go a little bit softer, grab any kind of a spoolie like this. And you can even get individual ones from, I know Target has them, Walgreens has them, CVS has them. They come in like packs of 10 or 12. Or if you have an eyebrow brush like this, it comes with a spoolie on one end. You can just comb through it. Then it makes it more fluffy, a little softer. And then for another option, because I didn't do this eyebrow either, I did pluck this eyebrow, but I didn't, there's nothing in it. I do have a brow gel. So this is by Benefit. It's called Gimme Brow. This one is really nice because it has little tiny fibers in it that cling to the brows. And it's really quick. So it's kind of just like mascara for your eyebrows. You just comb it in there. And it will make your brows appear a little bit fuller and thicker, but it's a lot more natural than something like this. Like this is very soft. And what I like about this is because it's super tiny, it's really little. You can even take a little bit on the tail if you need to extend your brow a little bit. And then it's softer and more natural.
Ta-da!
Ta-da! We have brows.
Yay.
I felt so weird coming on here without any eyebrows on. Feels nice to have some brows.
When I first started doing my brows, I found at first it felt very awkward, and it was like, why?
Yeah.
But now, when they're not looking right, it just drives me nuts. And so I've been waiting for you for this. Now, I do have someone that has a question. I've been waiting for you, so I haven't done my brows in a couple weeks. And so my eyebrow hairs, they grow slower now because I'm older, I guess. And so I don't have too much. It doesn't look like a big bushy mess, but there's enough. So I'm going to go do what you just demonstrated. So not right now, but after the camera. We have a question. The question is, how long does it usually take you to do your brows?
Just about as long as I just did it, honestly, because I haven't touched my eyebrows in like a week and a half. And it also depends on what products I'm using. So if I'm using like the brow pencil, it took me maybe like 5 minutes. But you have to remember, I've been doing this for a really long time. And so like that's for someone who is starting out, it may take you a little bit longer, but you're also trying to figure out what brow shape that suits your face shape. Whereas for me, I know what I like already. So it takes me anywhere between like 45 minutes to do my brows.
And that includes the shaping and everything. So okay. And so do you tweeze every day, or when you see something, you just tweeze it right away, don't you?
No, I wish I was like that. I'm not.
No?
I'm not. I should be like that. But I'm just like, oh, okay, it's okay. I can wait a few more days. And then sometimes it gets really bad. And I'm like, ooh, okay, get the tweezers out. Where are the tweezers at? I wish I did that every day. I should do that every day.
Do you provide, when you're in Sephora, when you're working, do you provide that for their clients? Do they come? No. Okay.
No, I wish. I don't know the direction that the company is going. I wish we did that. Like, I would love to get that certification and be able to do it in store, but we're able to apply it on you and kind of show you and direct you to help you figure out your brow shape and what suits your face the most, though.
Okay.
But we don't do any like tweezing or waxing.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. So, but they can come in and you, or whatever store they're in any city. I've got another question just popped up. In any city, it's going to be the same, consistent across the board.
Yes.
Okay. So what is something you wish you could fix for people when you see their brows? The most common thing.
What I wish I could fix.
Like something they may not realize they're doing or not doing.
I think maybe sometimes the color. So picking a brow color can be really difficult for most of my clients because our hair changes. So for me, I am not naturally blonde. My natural hair color is this dark up here. But because my complexion is more olive and a little more tan versus very fair, I can't do a blonde pencil. So what I do, which I don't have one here with me right now, I'll fill it in like this. And if I want my eyebrows to be brighter, like a blonde, I'll take a blonde tinted brow gel. Anastasia makes one that's really nice, and it coats the hair to make them a little bit lighter. But for a lot of clients, something that I come across a lot is that people like their brows to be the same color as their eyebrow hair that naturally grows. And sometimes it's too harsh. So like for me, my eyebrows grow black. I've never had black hair a day in my life, but my eyebrows do grow in very, very black. And I can't do a black brow on my face because it would look way too harsh for my complexion and my hair.
There you go. There you go. What about, and this is just me, what about when they put them too far in or make the arch too high? Do you ever feel like you just want to sit them down and help them out a little bit?
Yes. And I even notice that sometimes I'm not even at work. I'm just like out and about at the grocery store or wherever. And eyebrows is actually one of the very first things that someone notices about your face. The very first thing is your nose. That is the very first thing that somebody sees when they look at you. And then the brows. And that's because they are the most prominent features on the face. But sometimes when I'm just kind of shopping, I'm like, oh, I would really like to do her eyebrows. And not from a sense where I'm like, oh, I want to fix them, but it's like, I want to show her for her face shape. I want to help her. So yeah. But I think that's mostly, either color and like shaping for sure. Because everybody's face shape is so different.
Yeah, color. I can see color. For me, as a makeup artist as well, that's one thing that I tend to intentionally lean a little bit lighter than darker because it's softer for one thing.
Yes.
And we can always darken, but if we want to lighten, you almost have to take it all the way off, except that's a really good hack using the brow gel. I didn't think about that. And that even gives it an ombre look like your hair.
Yes. And I had to learn that because I went blonde a long time ago, before this, and I had no clue. And I was like, what am I going to do about these eyebrows? And I was just making them dark. Like they had just always been dark. So I was making them dark. And now when I go back and look at pictures, I'm like, oh, why didn't anybody tell me? Like my eyebrows were too dark. So, but now,
it's so funny. People don't tell each other things. Mostly, I think, because we're afraid to offend them, and you never know how someone will react. Even me. One day I may receive it well, and one day I may feel horrible. Not angry per se, but just like feel down on myself. So
yeah, and that's the last thing that I want, because for so long that's how I felt. And so when I get a client that sits in my chair, and it's happened a couple of times where they're so defeated by life, and they're like, I'm just here because I want to feel better. Yeah. And one of my favorite things is, yes, doing the makeup and making that transformation with them, but also connecting with people one-on-one is one of my favorite things. Like I love getting people in my chair and making a connection. And then as soon as they're out and they're leaving, they're giving me a hug, and now we're makeup BFFs. Like that's my favorite thing, because makeup is so much fun. Like I could sit here at my makeup desk and play for hours, and I want people to feel that same confidence and that same kind of love and passion when they leave my chair.
Yeah, that's awesome. It looks like I have several more questions, and they're coming from different places. Okay, so this one says, what if you don't really have a point to the arch of your eyebrows? And I'm guessing that means on the top. What or another thing is, what if your points, like mine right now, don't look too out of whack? It could be because I'm sitting funny, but I got the microbladed because this one, see how my whole eye kind of is lower than that one. So I said, okay, fix it with the microblading, because I never was successful freehanding it, no matter how hard I tried to get them looking even. And I know what you're going to say. Go ahead.
Sisters, not twins.
That's right. Yeah. So anyway, so what if you don't really have a point?
So if you don't really have that point, onto the brow, do not worry. So with your pencil, so it's going to go back to the brow mapping. If your brow hair, if your brow stops and just kind of continues to go straight, take that straight piece and go up just like that. And so whenever you're mapping out the brow, instead of stopping where your brow hair is, go up just a little bit. And when you go up a little bit higher, and then you make that connection to the tail of the brow, it's going to lift that brow and give you that point. And that's what I have to do on this side, because this side on my brows, you'll notice my arch is a lot higher on this one than it is on this one. So with my pencil, I'm just going to go up a little bit higher and then connect it. And then I have some space here now. So I'm just going to connect that space to that piece. And just like that. So now it looks a little bit higher. So now with my concealer, I would go underneath to lift it. So like, where'd my concealer go? Foundation will work. I don't even want to see this desk. It's a mess. So just go right underneath. And with the concealer, it'll even kind of conceal any stray hairs too. So that's a little bit higher. But notice they're not completely symmetrical. One, because I think that I lift this side of my face more than I lift this side, like expressive wise. Like, see? This side doesn't lift as much. So I think it's just my face too. So
I think it's very common. I think all of us probably have that, because as you know, I do the microblading as well. And as people are, when we're mapping out their brows before I do them, we have that same challenge. And it's like when they're talking and they're very expressive and their eyebrows are moving, then once you relax and the brows relax, then everything kind of settles back into its regular position.
Yes. So I'm just looking at you. See, that's so hard for me. If I'm just going to look straight, I can already tell you, this is my favorite side of my face. Like when I take my pictures, it's on this side. I don't ever take pictures on this side because I don't like this eye and I don't like this eyebrow. And so it's just nobody's face is completely symmetrical. So it's like when you take a picture and you're like, oh, you know, and you're with your friends and you're like, gotta get my good side, girl. Gotta get my good side. Like I'm always on this side because this is my good side. I think everybody has their good side.
Yeah, I think so too. I do. Okay, and here's a question from the opposite side of this conversation, and this one says, how do you achieve your basic, it says one, but how do you achieve doing your brows without it looking like it's drawn on?
That's going to go back to what you use. So I have powder somewhere. So your powders and your pencils are going to make your brows more soft and more on the natural side. And also is going to go by how much pressure you're using as well. So if you're using a lot of pressure and force on your brows with your products, it's always going to turn out too harsh, versus if you do go in with a super light hand. And even on my clients, I always go very light-handed. Even when somebody says that they prefer something more bold, I always go super light. And I mean, I'm barely applying any pressure. And you can see, even on my hand, the little brow strokes. So you don't have to go super harsh. See, I just broke my pencil. You don't have to go super harsh, because look at the difference. This one is a lot. It's very, very bold. This one is very soft and looks more natural.
Okay, I have one from me.
Yeah.
Working in Sephora and seeing people and talking to people and through your trainings or whatever, what is the trend for eyebrows for this year? Like, what is the forecasted trend? Do you know, or is it still always staying with what what you got going on now?
So this is just what I'm comfortable with. This was the trend for me. But I will say what is like hot brow trends right now is going to be that effortless, fluffy, soft brow. So where I on this side, just the gel and just kind of combed through. A lot of people are even taking, actually one of my friends, she's a makeup artist as well. She was telling me that she'll use lash glue and put it in her brows just while it's wet. Not a whole lot, like a teeny tiny bit, and then comb it out and comb it up with a spoolie. And it's very fluffy, it's very effortless, very chic. So that's the brow trend right now. I think this is always going to be for me, because if I try to do that, I'm going to look crazy. But I've seen some beautiful, fluffy, effortless brows, and they're gorgeous. But that's just not my thing.
What about what do you think it's legitimate? I've seen this all over the internet, and I don't care for it at all. But that doesn't mean it's not a thing. This new thing where they're brushing them up, and they've got all these hairs sticking everywhere. Gosh, I hope nobody gets offended by that. Here we go, offending people. But I don't care for that look. I can see it in fashion magazines or editorials or whatever, and it's just amazing. But do you think that's going to be a real trend with people? With the comment?
I think it just depends. I mean, because everybody's so different and everybody is so unique. So for me personally, I love a polished brow. I like it to look soft and natural, but my brow hairs are already so fluffy and they're very thick and very coarse. I don't want them to go all over the place, because I already feel like they're going all over the place, and these bad boys need to be tamed. Whereas somebody who may not have a lot of brow wants them to appear more fluffy and sporadic and make it appear like they do have more brows. I feel like that's going to be the client that look is for. But I totally agree with you. I feel like it is way more fashion and something I would see in a magazine versus in real life.
I got another one. Here's another question.
Yes. I love questions.
Do you have any advice for those of us who have long, thick brows? She says drawing hers like they do on Instagram always looks dumb. She says her hairs are almost wiry. And I know exactly what she's talking, the type of brows she's talking about.
Yes.
So what do you do
for that? Get a brow wax pencil. So there's actually one that I really like by a brand called Nude Sticks. And it is the best brow wax that I've ever used ever. And it lays down, it catches all the hairs and it lays them down. That way, when you do go to fill them in with a pencil, your hair's already flat, but it doesn't mess with the consistency of, it doesn't matter what product you're using. It won't mess with the consistency of it. I have one somewhere, but I don't know where it's at. But I've used it with powders. I've used it with creams. I've used it with pencil, and it never messes with the formula, but it does lay the brow hairs down really, really nice without feeling sticky.
Yeah, that was going to be my question is that brow wax, because I've used brow wax before because I just wanted to try it, and I didn't like it, but maybe I used too much, but it felt heavy and clumpy.
Some of them do. Especially the ones that come in the pots, you know? I feel like the ones that come in like the pots are super sticky. So I don't use the ones in the pots. The one that I use is a pencil. And actually what I like about it is that it has shea butter in it. And so it's hydrating. So you don't get that weird, sticky, goopy. Yeah, it feels goopy almost, but that one doesn't. So I really like that one.
Okay, sounds good. Well, do you have anything else on the brows, or should we move on to makeup?
Oh, we can move on to anything. I am here to answer all the questions. I love brows, but as you can see, I love a whole full face too. So whatever questions y'all have, I am here.
Awesome. So I don't have questions from anyone yet, but I know one of the biggest things that I get asked about is long wearing makeup that doesn't look cakey. What you got for us on that? Tips, tricks, favorite products?
I've got a lot of favorite products for that, because growing up and being oily almost my entire life, my makeup never stays. And of course, being here in Texas, it's hot and it's humid, and sometimes I want to do outdoor activities and my makeup is just slipping and sliding and raccooning all over the place and I can't handle it. Actually, last summer I found my holy grail summertime makeup that did not budge, and it was the Lancome Teint Idole. I was outside doing some outdoor shopping in Houston with my best friend, and we had been outside for like 4 or 5 hours, and I had gone into the ladies' room to look at my makeup, and it didn't budge. Everything was there. Everything was perfect. The only thing I had to touch up was my lipstick, and that was it. And I was so impressed. And I was like, oh, where has this been my whole life? And so now I always have a bottle on hand.
Do you prime
I do. I actually have been using, where is it? Here it is. My Pat McGrath primer. So I love this primer, and it smells really good. I don't know if that, I like things that smell good. So for me, I don't mind having a little bit of fragrance in my products. I know like there's a lot of people out there who are like, no fragrance, no fragrance. But sometimes I like a little bit of fragrance. But with this one, it looks like this. And it's slick, like, but it's not oily slick. It's like a powdery, smooth kind of a feel. And I really, really like this because I also am very acne prone, even now. And so I do get texture on my skin. And I feel like this primer really smooths everything over, as well as keeps my makeup on.
Okay, so the Pat McGrath primer and the Lancome, what was the name of the foundation you said?
Teint Idole. TEINT IDOLE.
Got it.
And another foundation, if you are like super oily, because the Lancome is good for any skin type. But if you do lean towards like a very oily skin type, the Jouer foundation, that one is JOUER. That one is amazing. I went on a bike ride actually the other day, and I am not a promoter of working out or sweating with your makeup on. I'm just not, but I had just finished a video on my Instagram, and I was like, I spent way too much time on this to take it off. So I'm leaving it. And so I went on a bike ride, and it was like 85 degrees outside, and I was gone maybe like an hour and 15 minutes, and it did not move. And I was like, okay, we're gonna add this one to the summertime pile too, because I was so impressed. I'm always impressed by things that don't move, because everything I feel like kind of has always moved on me. And so I'm always looking for like super long wear, especially because I'm at work 8 to 9 hours a day, and I am not the girl to touch up. Like, I do not want to touch up. I'm lazy. When my makeup's on, it better be there all day.
Do you add powder on top of these foundations or no?
Only where I need it. So I have a tendency to get more oily in my T-zone. So like my forehead, my nose, my chin, and then right here on my little cheekies, right here and right here. Those are always the first to go. So the powder that I actually have been using is it was called Kat Von D, but now it's called KVD Vegan Beauty. Can't find Kat Von D. Her name's not on it anymore, but it's the same powder. And I don't know if you can see this, but oh yeah, you can. I have used the mess out of this powder. I love this powder. And if you want like a more affordable option, I think this one's $36, but Maybelline has one, and that one it was on my desk, and I clean my desk, and I don't know where anything's at when I clean, but oh my gosh, that one's really nice too. Super soft, very, very smooth, and keeps your makeup on.
Well, what about, that was white. It doesn't make your face white and chunky looking?
Nope. So here's a little bit of foundation. It matches my face, I promise. Just doesn't match my hand. So that's the foundation. And then if I take a little bit, and that's the key with this, is less is always more with powders, because it's so much easier to add than it is to take a big glob of powder. And I will say, I am not a fan of baking underneath the eyes. It is not my favorite.
Yeah, I think that's gone away now. I think that was a trend and then it went away.
And it went away, yeah. It looks like my skin. And I mean, I've used this powder for a long time. It's a lot like the Laura Mercier translucent powder. That one's almost the same color. Who else? Huda Beauty has one that's really nice. That one is like heavily fragranced though. So if you're not a fan of fragrance, I wouldn't go for it. Also, what's another one that I have? Oh, actually the Lancome translucent powder is really good too. And it has that same kind of tint and it's really smoothing.
So translucent, these white or colorless or translucent powders are popular at, I mean, with retail, in the retail world, they're popular, as opposed to what previously we used to always get a foundation that matched our face, or not a foundation, a powder that matched our face. So people aren't doing that anymore?
So sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I don't really go for that trend anymore. I do remember when I first started wearing makeup, and that was the thing. My mom did it. My grandmothers did it. You know, that was the thing to do. All my friends were doing it. And then once I started working for Sephora and I kind of learned like your powder foundations are foundations. They're not always meant to be put on top of another foundation. So if I'm wearing a tinted moisturizer and I'm like, you know, I kind of want a little bit more coverage, then I'll take my foundation powder on top and then leave it alone, versus doing a translucent powder. So those foundation powders are really meant to give you like a little bit of extra coverage, or to be worn by themselves. But if you are wearing a foundation powder by itself, I highly, highly, highly recommend using a primer underneath it, because otherwise, I mean, there's nothing sticking to it and it's just going to slide off throughout the day.
And that's a perfect answer, because this question has been sitting in the queue. How important is primer, and is it just for longevity of the look?
So primers do different things. So like I have this one up here by Cover FX. I don't know if you can see it. My lights are super bright. It's a blurring primer. So because I wear makeup so often, my pores here do get pretty large. So I like to use something that is pore filling. So I'll use this one by Cover FX, or I have this one. This one's called Skin to Die For, and you can tell she's been used and abused because I love her. But it is a pore filling, but this one's also mattifying. So if you're using a mattifying primer, you really only want to use a mattifying primer where you get oily, because otherwise if you put it all over, you'll start to notice like, oh my gosh, I'm getting like some dryness here. That's why, because your skin's not producing a ton of oil in that area. So a mattifying primer doesn't really serve a purpose for someone who is on the drier side. Or I have a sample of something right here, because I got a Sephora order in today. Go figure. This one is by Milk, and I do have 2 full sizes on hand almost all the time. This one is hydrating and it's gripping. So when you put it on, you'll feel it's like sticky and tacky. But what I like about that is that it grips onto makeup, so it's not going to move. So this is like my daily. If I'm going to work, like this is the one that I use all the time, because I'm at work for so long and I do have to have on a full face of makeup, like what I have on right now, is like my everyday. Whereas for somebody else, this is nighttime. And it also depends on, I guess, like what formulas of foundation you are wearing. So if you're wearing a mattifying foundation, I do not recommend grabbing for a mattifying primer. Do something a little bit more hydrating underneath it, because sometimes what happens is when we get very oily, like excessively oily, our skin is actually dehydrated. And if you put down a matte primer, then you put on a matte foundation, then you set it with your matte setting powder, then your skin is like, oh, I need water, I need water, I need water. But there's not enough water in your skin. So what it does is it pushes oils up to the top. And that's why we get excessively oily areas on our skin.
And cakey.
And cakey. Yes, cakey is a word that when I first started at Sephora, they were like, cakey is not a thing. And I was like, yes, it is. But what they were saying was it's about application. So
right.
It also goes by like, how are you prepping your skin before you put makeup on? What are you using to apply your makeup with? Are you using a brush? Are you using a sponge? I use both. I have like 5 sponges sitting up here right now, but I also have, all these brushes up here too. So to avoid cakey, it's all going to depend on what tools you're using and how you're prepping your skin before you actually put your makeup on.
Gotcha. So what's your favorite tip? Gosh, we've been on the phone on the line for almost an hour already. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Your favorite tip? I've got 2 questions for you. What's your favorite tip for, your favorite tip that people say, oh, that's a great idea. What's your favorite one that you tell people?
So this is actually like one of my very secret tips that I'm going to share with you, because I love sharing this when I'm training my artists. But it's also pretty beneficial for people who really like to wear makeup, even like something bold like this, like what I have on. So have you ever put on your eyeshadow and you want it to be like sharp? Or have you ever put on your eyeliner, like your wing liner, and you're like, I want it to be sharp, like slick and sharp, no lines, no harsh edges, nothing. If you have an eye cream at home, and this one lives on my desk, this one's by Algenist, but it can literally be anything. And I just scoop a little bit out, and I use a flat brush like this, and I take a little bit, and I clean up the side. So if you want super sharp liner, but you can't like, you ever start with a really thin line and one side looks so good, and then the other side ends up like Amy Winehouse in like 0.4 seconds? This is the trick. This is the one to clean it up. And all of my artists are always like, why didn't I think of that? And I don't even think I learned that from somewhere. I think I got in a bind one time and I was like, oh my gosh, what do? I don't know how to fix this. And, you just look at what's in front of you, because you don't want to step away, because then that takes away from the time of the client that's in your chair, and it's like, okay, what do I have in front of me that could maybe make this go away? And so one day I just and picked it up, and I was like, that's the one. That's the one. That's the trick.
And that doesn't disturb their other makeup?
Nope. Not at all. Because even if you notice like a little line, or like say like, oh, my concealer came off, use your finger. Your finger is the best tool, the best makeup tool that was ever given to you, and it's free. Your hands, if your hands are warm. So I always hear people like when I'm at work and they're like, don't laugh at me. I put my makeup on with my fingers. Girl, me too. I put my makeup on with my fingers too. And sometimes if I'm having a hard time even blending out an eyeshadow, always take your ring finger and just kind of tap on top of it Don't smear it, just tap on top and it'll press out those harsh edges. And I always say the ring finger because it has one less tendon than all of your other fingers, less mobility and less pressure. So then you're not like jabbing yourself in the eye and creating fine lines and premature aging. That was like 6 tips in one.
I noticed. Okay, so my other question is, what's your favorite thing about Sephora? It doesn't have to be working there. It doesn't have to be, you know, a product, just in general about Sephora, the brand, or it could be about working there. I don't, you know, just what's your favorite thing about Sephora?
I have so many favorite things about Sephora. I think my number one thing is really how accepting they are of everybody's cultures, because everybody is so different and they embrace that. They embrace everybody's differences and they accept you for who you are. And I've had a really great experience working for Sephora, and I've worked at 2 different stores. This is my 2nd location. And I've only been at this location for 3 months, and they were so welcoming from the time that I walked in, and they were like, hey, how's it going? Tell me about yourself. Who are you? What do you know? Like, they genuinely care. And that was something that was very important for me personally, because I am very, what's the word for it? I love people and I love to be loved by people. And so I take a deep interest in everybody that I meet. And so it's really cool when a company that you're working for meets you there. They're like, we want to know you. Who are you? Not just as an artist, but even like outside. Who are you in your personal life too? And I really like that.
Wow, that's awesome. That sounds like, yeah, and even for customers as well, you know, I'm sure that pours onto the customers.
Yeah, because sometimes it's hard.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you for being available and doing all of this. You have given so much information. You gave 150%, just like you said. Not that you promised it, but that's just who you are. It's been exactly an hour, and we could go. I mean, seriously, we could do this for hours.
I could do this all day. And I do this all day long. So shoot me a message, follow me on Instagram. I answer all of my messages all of the time, especially now that I'm not doing anything. I have my phone on me all the time. Any makeup questions that you have, like, seriously, I'm here all the time.
Well, that's great. That's great. That was my next question. So how can people find you or get in touch with you if they have questions, or do you mind? So you've just answered that.
Do not mind at all. Yeah.
Awesome.
That's my favorite. That's my favorite thing.
Great. So y'all listen up. Hit her up on social media. She's there, and she's a great spirit. I just love Melanie to death. So thank you again, and I hope you have a great evening, and we will talk to you soon.
Yes, bye.
Bye.